Mark, we're here to talk about a very unique horror movie or thriller. I don't even know how you classify this movie. It's called Good Boy, and it's a horror film from the perspective of a dog, a little dog named Indy, who goes away with his owner Todd to a sort of cabin in the woods type situation, and there are very odd things happening at the house in which they're staying, involving Todd's deceased grandfather and his deceased grandfather's possibly deceased dog. Uh, it's a very unique film. It's very brief. I mean, it's only 73 minutes long, I think. It reminded me of Heart Eyes, the movie that came out in February.
Oh yeah.
Not so. I mean, they're very different films, but they are similar in that they try and take horror or thrillers in a different direction. With that movie, it was kind of like, what if we turned a Hallmark movie into a slasher film? And in
Right.
this, it's, what if we had a horror thriller involving the supernatural, but seen through the point of view of a family pet? In both cases, I admire the effort, but I think the next one is going to be the one that maybe sings, or maybe the one afterwards. I admire Good Boy, but I don't know if I love it. I don't even know how much I like it. What say you, sir?
I thoroughly enjoy it, but this is a film that's right up my alley. One indie film that is trying to do something different, which I always love. I wasn't a huge fan of Hard Eyes, in all honesty. I appreciated what they were trying to do. I think they stumble a bit. And
Yeah.
while Good Boy, I think, stumbles a little bit, I don't think as much, but I really enjoy the concept. I always enjoy films that are minimalistic in dialogue, because for me, I don't know why, it's just one of those things where I tend to enjoy those films a little more, because I like seeing how, because then it relies a lot on the editing and the direction and
sound.
and the
Sound.
sound,
Yeah.
and absolutely the sound. It relies on the other technical elements for you to get your ideas or story across, and for the most part they do that well here. I won't say that it's perfect, but as far as, say, lack of a better term, gimmick horror films go, I thoroughly had fun with it and was happy of the short run time. I'm glad they didn't try to drag this out longer. I think the gimmick lasts fairly well. Do I think it would have probably done better maybe as a short film? Probably. But overall, for me, I got into it quite a bit, and I thought what they were doing here was interesting. And I do hope it opens up more folks to doing something different with horror, because I think that's what we need now.
Yeah. I mean, I remember watching the trailer at some point and getting the sense that it might have been more of a monster or a zombie movie. And certainly the poster gives the impression that there's more going on as far as multiple things attacking this
Right.
dog. And I think that was one of my disappointments, was fairly early on. And we're going to talk spoilers here. I'm not going to bother to put up the banner, but just understand that we're talking spoilers, folks. It's basically one entity that's tormenting this Todd guy. And that's an interesting idea. It's an approach. It's kind of this drippy, tar looking monster thing that kind of comes out of the shadows and grabs people and strokes the dog and all this other thing. But I don't know. There's just something about the fact that this goes on for 73 minutes. You're right. This would have been a perfect short film. But at 73 minutes, it falls for me into the Ghost Hunters phenomenon, which is like, we're going to go into this house and, oh my God, look at this creepy corner and watch it for 2 minutes. And did you see that? No. And then we go to another creepy room. Did you see that? Oh, wait, something flickered. Yeah, I saw it. Okay.
Sure.
Isn't that scary? Not really.
It is for some. I mean, look at how many people really enjoyed Skinamark. So, I mean, there's an audience.
Oh, Skinamarink. I didn't see that.
Okay.
When you say Skinamark, I think
Sorry,
of Skinamax
Skinamarink.
projected
Yeah.
in a Cinemark, which I would
Sorry.
want.
Yeah, well, yeah, that'd be interesting. You need private seats for that. But Skinamarink, excuse me. I mean, there are a lot of people that really enjoyed that film, and I know a lot of folks who are on both sides. There's some who really enjoyed it, and others that were like, Yeah, staring at a hallway for 90 minutes. Boy, that was interesting. Where not much goes on. So I think, with any genre, especially horror, there's various levels. For me, was I really scared by anything in here? No. A bit creeped out, yeah. But I liked just more of the concept and how they were able to give Indy a personality and character that is tough to do, because one of the things they usually tell folks, especially indie filmmakers, is don't work with kids and don't work with animals. And
It's
so
the
here
old W.C. Fields line, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so here you're working with an animal, and not only that, the animal's your main character, and you have to sell it as a character. You have to have your audience buy into it, that it has some kind of personality, not that it's just a dog. And you have that here. I think they direct the animal well, the facial expressions on it. I think they cut and do interesting camera angles on it too. There's a lot of things that help give our main character Indy a personality of more than just being a dog. And I liked that aspect of it. And I thought that took a lot of work, especially if you're going to hinge your entire feature length, basically film, on this being the main character.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was like overall, I admire and appreciate a lot about this movie more than I could get into it. I don't think I ever really got onto the movie's wavelength, whatever that
Sure.
was. I was more enamored with the technical aspect of it. I mean, let's start with the way that it looks. A lot of it is in shadow. I mean,
Right.
even the broad daylight scenes, everything's kind of overcast, and but when we get into the darkness of that house and like the cellar and out into the woods, it becomes, and I cranked the brightness up on my laptop because I'm like, my eyes are not that bad. Is it just that purposely dark? And I think it is, but the stuff that you see around the darkness, it's really cool. I mean, this thing looks like it was shot in 8K. I don't know that I've I don't know if I've seen any movie that looks quite like this, where everything is so vivid, even in the darks, when you see things kind of popping out of you like that. It looks like I can reach out and touch it. Now, what I'm thinking is someone needs to take what the technique of this movie and infuse it with some genuine like chills and thrills.
Yeah, I mean, again, it all depends on the viewer. I think someone who might be a more casual horror film will probably find more chills and thrills in it. There's a lot of the gimmicks and stuff in here that I saw the beats coming, and that's not a bad thing. It's just I've watched a lot of horror, and especially supernatural horror. So for me, yeah, I do admire it a little bit more for the technical aspect and the other parts than maybe the stories and the chill factor itself. But I think there are some here if you're a more casual fan. If nothing else, if you ever hear the term gateway horror, this is definitely, I think, a film that could be a gateway horror for some folks who are looking for horror, but maybe not like, well, I don't know if I really like it. I think you could give this to someone who's maybe looking to get into horror. um
I don't know. I
You
think
think
this
it
is a
goes too
good
far?
no, I just think that okay, when you talk about a casual fan who's just coming into horror,
Yeah.
and that's a loaded label because
Oh,
horror
yeah.
could, everything from like the Universal films from the from
Oh,
the
yeah. No,
40s
no, yeah.
to,
I realize that,
slashers to whatever. But I'm thinking like a casual horror fan, someone who likes horror movies and they're into like slashers or modern stuff. I feel like you give them this movie and it's going to be what I was just talking about. Like there's nothing going on.
Mhm.
They're going to be like, where's the ghost? Where are the zombies? Where's the killer? Like, what's going on with this dog? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because there is a certain expectation. This might be a good gateway for someone to get into maybe what they would call elevated horror, where it's
Oh, yeah.
not just all in
Mhm.
your face all the time. It's a bit more artistic.
Mhm.
I don't think it's quite cerebral or even thematic enough to say that this is you're going to be thinking about this long after it's over. In a lot of ways, it reminded me of In a Violent Nature,
Oh, yeah.
where
Uh-huh.
that replace the looking in dark corners with following a guy walking through the woods. But I mean, I would have to give I hated In a Violent Nature. I like this movie more, because I appreciate it more, but I got to give the edge to the story and the accomplishment of what it was trying to do to In a Violent Nature, because at least you had these punctuations of some really,
Mhm.
graphic, gnarly
Yeah.
kills. In this one, yeah, again, let's go back to Indy. Because as a dog character, you're right, he's great. I mean, there's a couple of times when Todd leaves him in the house and he's crying and whining, and I recognize that. We've had our
Sure.
dog for 3 years. We still call him a puppy, and sometimes when certain folks like go out on errands, he's like crying and just like carrying on. And I hope they weren't. I hope they were able to get that performance without like traumatizing the dog or something,
I think they were.
because
I
it's
think they
it's a
were.
great performance,
Yeah.
right? But that's things. How do you know? You can tell a human actor, I need you to, call back to a traumatic childhood memory and then bring that out and cry for me. But with a dog, it's just like, oh, we're gonna, you know, I don't know, run over your best friend, and then that's how we get you to cry. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure how they got the performances out of it. I would hope, especially in today's day and age, I don't think they would get through anything that caused major trauma or whatnot to the animal, because I'm sure you get, you know, watchful eyes now on that constantly. Or you should get watchful eyes just to make
Yeah.
sure you got your butt covered. Uh, you know, should
No
it come to the
animals were
question.
psychologically traumatized in the making of this
Right,
movie.
right. What was unexpected for me, and I didn't mind it at all, it was just a bit of surprise that they took the owner in a direction that I thought it was just gonna be him tormented by the supernatural angle. I didn't expect the addition of him actually having cancer. Uh,
Yeah. How,
you know
I'm going to ask you the
yeah.
psychologist thing. How do you feel about that, Mark?
Here's the thing, when you add that into the story, there's 2 ways you can look at that. You can look at that going, "Oh, alright," or then it takes things to until the ending, it takes things to a slightly different level to where, "Alright, well, let's get art housey here." I don't know if
Mm.
Jiwa would appreciate it or not, but, let's get art housey here and just think about it. Uh, does he actually have cancer, or is the possession of the supernatural being, which cancer is usually portrayed by like a black ooh or a black goo or whatever, possessing him, having him, like reality see cancer, as see it as cancer, but the dog sees it at what it really is, which
Mm.
is a demon trying to possess him and take him over. Because they always say how animals are perceptive about someone who has, especially cancer, some chronic illness. Dogs and cats, animals in general, seem very sensitive to people and can tell. In fact, they've had some who, through sniffing or whatnot, can pinpoint cancer in people or other, there's been instances of that. So I was like sitting there going, well, let's just take it. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that's what they're trying, but I'm like, well, let's take it there. The rest of the world sees it as just cancer, but is the dog seeing it as what it truly is which is this entity making him sick so it could take him over and eventually steal him away.
I love that. I don't think that's in this movie.
Well, no, I'm just saying though,
But
it's
but that's the thing. But what we do get in here, it's ambiguous to the point where it almost seems like there's clashing ideas of what this thing is, and not necessarily that the writer director knows something that we don't.
right,
Um, because there's this when we first meet Todd, he's sick, and his
right.
sister rushes in because he's bleeding all over the dog and the phone, and uh, I think she calls for help or something. And then later, Todd goes up to the grandfather's house with Indy to stay there, and he finds these old tapes of the grandfather like kind of dawdling around, and there's like hundreds of tapes, like video cassettes of home movies and horror films. That was kind of a nice touch.
Yeah,
But he sees flashes of his grandfather, or maybe Indy is seeing them. We get dog dream sequences, which is really wild. I like that. That's one of the things I think that is kind of admirable about this movie, is taking some of the tropes we see applied to human beings in horror films and applying those to a dog, to the point
yeah,
where Indy will have a vision or he'll have a nightmare and he'll wake up in a completely different place or situation. Like, wait, how did I get out here? That's really fascinating. But on the other hand, Indy is seeing visions of the grandfather's dog who kind of looked like him, but he wore a red bandana. That's how you tell. And then we see this black tar monster. So is the black tar monster, did that kill the grandfather? Did the grandfather also have cancer? Because in some of those visions, he's coughing up blood. If it's not something about the house, because Todd was already sick beforehand.
Todd was sick. We see a video footage of what it implied that he may have gotten better. But then he goes to the house to hide out by his grandpa because I don't know if the cancer comes back or what. They do mention briefly in a phone conversation that it was implied grandpa also had cancer because he's got the same, because his sister implies that he may have the same thing their uncle had. And that's why she wants him out of the house, because she's thinking, maybe there's something in the house making him sick or whatnot, but she wanted him to return. And he's like, no, I'm fine. And she's like, yeah, bullshit, because she's a sibling. She knows. She's like,
right, but that's the kind of what I'm wondering. Is it something to do with the house, or is it in the blood? Because honestly, then would she be, is there going to be a good boy too? Because at the end of this, again, spoiler alert, Todd gets taken by this tar monster and kind of absorbed into it. And then Indy's like kind of pleading with him, and he's like, no, boy, you have to stay here.
Right.
So he gets kind of sucked back into the house. And then Vera, the sister, shows up the next morning, opens up the cellar door, is horrified to see the skeletal, really nicely done effect, by the way, the skeletal remains of the other dog with the bandana, and then also Indy there. And she's like, come here, boy. And she's crying. It's great because you don't see her at all, but you can hear her. It's a really good, oral performance. That sounded terrible, but it's effective.
Right.
And then Indy kind of runs up the stairs. There's like a solid 5 exciting minutes towards the end of this movie, and the end of this movie I think is really strong. It's the other 63 minutes or whatever that is like, we could punch this up a little bit.
Yeah, they could have probably punched it up a little bit. There's sometimes going too subtle. Yeah, the last 5 minutes of this film for sure. And what I like is, again, I love films that don't use a lot of dialogue, so you have to kind of put things together visually. And you get the implication that the uncle had something similar happen to him that happens to Todd, to the owner, because we have the dog skeleton in the basement. Yeah. So it's almost implied that, oh yeah, this has happened before. The dog got trapped in the basement. Only difference this time is that the sister shows up to rescue Indy. Otherwise, Indy could have suffered the same fate as the other dog because he couldn't get out of the basement.
I mean, that's true, because what happened in those hours between the time that Todd kind of got absorbed back into the house and Vera showed up? Why was Indy okay? And is that thing that's in the house, is that the grandfather, or is that just this other thing? And has Todd become now part of that, or is he going to haunt the house as his own thing? Again, I don't mind ambiguity, but when you start putting these things out there, like, oh, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this. I'm like, well, if it is this, then why that? And all this other stuff, pick a lane and stay there.
I mean, it's nice to get those explanations, but that's not quite the type of horror film it is. If this is like a Conjuring film, we would have had someone at some point show up in like the Warrens or what. I go, oh, this is what it is. Here's what is going on. But
it's but with I think when you start putting too many possibilities of what it could be in here and not developing any of those ideas, like just following any one of them, it becomes like that line from the new Toxic Avenger remake where they say it's a hat on a hat. It's like one thing too many, it's distracting.
Yeah, and it does leave some questions with it, and that's where you do run into a bit of it being told mostly from the perspective of a dog, is that you don't necessarily get those moments like that. Could they tell them visually? Sure. but they didn't here. I don't know if lack of budget or they were going for the time or whatnot. They could have possibly explored a little bit more of the origins of what is going on. I mean, they hint at it a bit, a cursed place. They hint at what could actually be making them sick versus what reality is seeing, what everybody else is seeing them as sick. But it doesn't quite go that deep into that. So yeah, I can understand with that ambiguity. You start asking questions like, you know, uh, uh, and we've had horror films like that before. So I guess, it's what you're looking for. It would be nice to have a little bit more explanation, but I took it as just a cursed place and the family was cursed, or at least he was cursed. And I wouldn't doubt that the sister eventually gets ill.
That's good. That's good boy too. No, that's good girl, because she's gonna bring her dog Lassie or
And then
whatever.
Indy and her female dog, and they're together and they're trying to figure out what the supernatural, because it's a sequel, so you gotta have two. So,
I am glad that you brought that up, because unironically, I think one of my issues with this movie, and I've got a lot of issues with this movie, but I'm not mad at it. It's just that I think there's a lot here, and I'm disappointed that again, I can't be mad at it, because it's something that it's unexplored territory. So someone's going to pick this up and run with it someday. But towards the end of the film specifically, we get a lot of shots that are traditional horror movie shots, where Indy is like looking out a window and it's raining and it's storming. It's like, is there someone
yeah,
out there watching the house? The lights are flickering on and off, and there's like a whole generator thing, and the generator stops, and so everything goes dark. In a horror movie, there's an specifically, like, these are kind of like slashery tropes, or
right,
different
yeah,
kind of ghost movie tropes, where you've got, people in a house and they're going to get picked off or harassed by this thing. In this, you've got Todd, but he's kind of a non-entity, because he's sick most of the time and in bed, and we
right.
don't really know or care if anything happens to him. But with Indy, this never feels like the kind of movie where they're going to kill the dog.
Well, no,
And so
yeah,
the thing is like, oh, isn't this scary? I'm like, not really, because I never feel the dog is in danger. If there are other dogs or imagine like a family going to stay in this house, and they all bring like, their dogs, or one brings a cat or something. So it
sure,
becomes almost
sure.
like a pet slasher movie. So if there is some kind of danger or peril, I mean, I don't want to see any animals get harmed, but you see what I'm saying? Like there has to be some kind of stakes.
Yeah, and I was wondering if they were going to go there for a little bit. I was like, are we going to go there? And then I realized, well, no, I don't think they're going to kill the dog necessarily. you know, uh, you do get those scenes where, like we've gotten in horror films with humans, to where someone is locked out. This case, at one point, Indy gets locked out because his owner gets taken over by the supernatural force, and it locks him outside because Indy's trying to scare off the force from his boss. And so he gets locked outside, and there's that whole, he's trapped out there while his owner's inside under threat. So you've got that. But yeah, I never thought the stake there. They try to make the stake the owner. But you're right, with keeping the owner so nondescript, it is a little bit of a harder sell to care if something happens to him. You care more about something happening to the owner because it would leave the dog abandoned than something happening to the owner because it's a person.
No, I mean, but that's a good point. I mean, like at one point, Indy is running from the house through the woods, and I think it's implied that Todd is the one who finds him, but it's kind of a shadowy figure, and I think it's
Right.
storming
Yeah.
out, so you don't really see who it is until he kind of wakes up in the house, and you're like, oh, it was Todd. I thought for sure it was going to be the neighbor,
Right.
who's kind of like the first time we see him, that was really an violent nature shot, because he kind of comes lumbering out of the woods and he's all camouflaged, and like, what is this guy? So maybe you think he's going to try and help, or he's going to go to the house, and I'm thinking in horror movie conventions, which is
Yeah.
probably a mistake, but it would have been something, because the neighbor is kind of introduced and he pops up later again, but nothing ever really comes of it.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see them do a little bit more of the neighbor, either make him a red herring threat or make him try to save Todd as well and have something bad happen to him. Something like that, maybe to solidify that this is a really threatening force. I thought they were going to do more with the neighbor character, but they don't. He's not really even a red herring so much, which he could have been. Which
Yeah,
you do.
he's more of a camo herring,
A
honestly.
camo herring. Yeah.
But yeah, even this, I mentioned the, looking at corners and not really seeing anything, but holding on it for, it
Yeah.
seems like minutes on end. During some of the climactic scenes, like the bit you mentioned where Indy is in the yard outside the house and the lights are flickering and he knows that Todd's inside, but he can't get to him. The music and the rain does a lot of heavy lifting because at a certain point, I just started thinking there's a lot in this movie that just comes across as poorly lit home movies. Like, hey, here's my dog in the yard looking up at the house. And you've got music saying like, da-da, like Todd's in danger, Todd's in danger. But then you like look at what's going on in the scene and it's just a dog shot from behind going, and lights flickering. And
Well,
the same thing at the end, like over the end credits, it's a shot of what we assume is Indy and Todd's drive up to the cabin, but it's all just Indy like leaning out the window, and you've got some music playing. You could put anything to this. Like this could be a horror movie, or you could put like the Benny Hill theme and have it be a comedy, like we're
well,
going on a wacky adventure, but it's just a dog with its head leaning out the window.
see, and I took that as him driving away with the sister, not as driving up to the hill with Todd.
I thought at the very end he said something like "We're here, boy" or something. I thought I heard a male voice.
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Okay.
I know in at least the version I watched, I don't think I heard that. But I mean, it could have been him going up. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mostly took that as him, the old shot like you would get with the final girl sitting in the car all bloody looking out the window, reflecting over everything that happened
And that's why I think this was a shot from the beginning of the film that we didn't actually see of them going to the cabin because the dog looked fine. Like he didn't
True.
look wet or traumatized or what. If he had been in the back seat kind of curled up and like maybe even watching from inside the car from his point of
Right.
view, that could have been interesting. And maybe we just hear poor Vera crying in the front seat or something. I don't know. I don't want to be that cruel, but that's the thing. The director of this film is Ben Longberg and co-written by Alex Cannon. And I think, yeah, that's the thing. I admire the effort. Let me ask you this, Mark. Is this a big screen movie?
This is a festival movie. I'm not, and that's not an insult. I'm just saying that it surprises me when I heard about it on the festival circuit. Because what was it at Fantastic Fest or at South by Southwest or wherever they first showed it? It was a big hit and it got buzz, and people are like, "Wait, what?" I didn't think it was going to actually get a bigger release, only because of the type of film it was that I heard about. And then when I actually got a chance to see the screener, and the only reason I got a chance to see it is because for the company I go through, transparency, of course, the PR company, they had a screening in the UK and they usually deal with UK films. So I just happened to get the screener link because it's showing in the UK, not because it's in the US. But then I did some more digging after I watched it. I'm like, oh, wait, this is getting and holy crap, it's actually going to show at a theater in Appleton. I'm like, wow. And that's what surprised me is I could see this film definitely being the charming film on an indie festival circuit because of the type of film it is. But because of some of the shortfallings that you've mentioned and some of the other things that it is, it's hard to say if it is a film that is suited for a wide release.
Yeah.
Because films like this don't tell me, I'm not saying an indie film shouldn't get a wide release. I love all indie films, and more eyes on it, the better,
Yeah.
regardless. But if you're looking at it solely as like a business wise, is it really going to benefit from a wide release screening in the theater? That's hard to say with this because it is a very niche film.
Yeah. I just imagine a lot of like watch checking and things. I mean, there are some cool visuals and a couple of nice kind of surprise moments. One of the things I thought was great is that we don't see Todd. We never see Vera, but we barely see Todd
Right.
at all until the very end. Um, but in some of the glimpses we do see, he's backlit, and
Yeah.
it's and kind of dark and again rainy, or the light is kind of dancing around almost like this halo. It reminded me of one of the early paperback versions of The Shining. I remember from the 80s was just like this. I think it was a silhouette of Jack Torrance where he just didn't have a face and he was kind of in
Right.
silver. It reminded me of that. It was really eerie. And so yeah, there's again a lot to admire, but the movie left me cold. And maybe that's the point because it took place a lot in the rain.
And for me, I enjoyed it. Like I said, it gave me hope for someone else being creative. It shows me people are trying to take horror in different directions. We don't get a lot of films that go stay this committed to a gimmick. I've seen films that try to use gimmicks and they hardly ever stay committed. And I've said this in some of my reviews of indie films. I always admire a film, whether or not I like the gimmick completely or not. I admire them if they stick to it, if
Mm.
they come up with a gimmick and they actually commit to it fully rather than throw it up and then you never see it again, or hey, this is the type of film it is, and that's the film for about 5 minutes, and then it's something completely different, that it's nothing, and so that's one of the things I admire as well, is they completely committed to the gimmick. I think it is a film that I'm not sure how well it's going to do box office wise. I mean, it's got a lot of internet buzz among the younger demographics. So they may go to see it, if anything, for the fact that, oh, hey, this is the viral buzz of holy crap, a dog led horror film. When they come out of the film, I'm not sure how they're going to react to it.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a movie for TikTokers. No slam on TikTokers, but if you're used to watching something that's, a minute long and you're like, wow, this is really dragging out, I can't imagine someone watching this movie for and being completely entertained. But, yeah, I think I agree. I like when people try and do something different, and someone's going to take this gimmick and run with it. I'm conflicted because I don't think this movie, I don't know how it's going to do box office wise, but it also doesn't strike me as the kind of movie that was terribly expensive to make. I mean,
No,
it looks amazing,
it does. Yeah.
but and it doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look like, oh, they had to cut corners here because of X, Y, or Z. It really does feel like we've got this money. We can really do something cool with this. And we're going to see how it goes. And it got, distribution. It's going to be showing places. But on that hand, I don't want it to fail because I want someone to come along in a few years and say, hey, remember Good Boy? I've got a twist on it and I want to do something
Right.
different. If this thing completely tanks, then the money people can say, "Oh yeah, we tried that movie from a dog's point of view and we lost our shirts." No.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I again, yeah, I don't think the budget was that high on it. It's got a high production value, which I appreciated quite a bit. That's another thing where I say commit to the gimmick, is that they didn't go half-assed. Oh, look, we're going to make a horror movie with a dog. We don't have to pay attention, lighting and everything. You could tell they put a lot of work into the set and lighting and camera work, especially in it, and to make it look really good visually. Uh, it looks like a Hollywood quality type of production. This isn't like you say indie. This is not. So I am impressed by its look. I hope it does well. I don't think it's going to do like, oh my god, but I don't think it's going to tank either. But this film definitely has an audience. It's going to find its audience, probably not so much in the wide release, but definitely on streaming. And it's probably going to be one of those, especially for pet lovers, especially dog lovers. a horror movie that's geared towards them, which specifically, and I think it's one that, yeah, it'll have legs. As far as box office in that, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it'll make its money, you know.
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's a way to put a disclaimer on this, because I could see pet owners and dog lovers especially not wanting to see it because they're going to think, oh, it's a dog in peril for 90 minutes. It's
Right.
a horror movie, but it really isn't that kind of a movie. I mean, I did mention there is a dead dog in the film, but it's
It's
like a
just a
dog
skeleton.
skeleton,
Yeah.
right? And there's no like violence against the dogs really, aside from there's some struggle and things like that, but it's not like, again, the original Toxic Avenger where you see a dog get a hole blown in it in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and most of it is not the dog in peril, it's the owner in peril and the dog trying to fight it off. Very
there's that scene where the dog's getting yanked by the chain,
Oh, there is
specifically in
that. No,
the
I'm not saying,
yeah,
but I'm just not saying every horror, where it's not the dog's constantly in peril. Yeah, no, there is
right,
the
right.
dog, the chain being yanked. In fact, that whole sequence with him being tied up outside and the chain being yanked and having the monster in the house, the dog house, that is the only like real dog in threatening peril you really feel. I mean, there's a couple of jump scares for the dog, but as far as where you're questioning, is the dog really going to get hurt? That's the only scene you really get. And I appreciate that because it's far more, uh, uh, you know, digestible than having him constantly almost be hurt. You don't.
Yeah. And it's also that was part of that. I don't know if that was last 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
that action set piece where he like busts through that doghouse. I mean, it reminded me of the opening of Final Chapter where they blow up Jason's
Yeah.
hockey mask. It was just like so kinetic and cool. But yeah, Mark, I'm glad we got to talk about Good Boy.
Yeah.
It's one of those rare movies that I'm mixed on. Like I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I'm right there in the middle. And I can say, folks, watch it, and however you feel about it is how you're going to feel about it, but it at least is going to give you something to think about as far as what are the possibilities with the genre, because people say there's nothing new under the sun. Leonberg proved that there is, so kudos to him.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's why I watch indie stuff. It's always fun to see interesting things. Either people do it as a joke gimmick or this. I was impressed of how serious it took the subject, and how serious it went with this hook of being told from a dog's perspective. And it's worth a watch. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that long of a film, and I think it'll definitely have a home on streaming and have a life there for people to watch because it'll be short amount of time. It's got a dog, and especially watching it from the comfort of your home. I think that's where it'll definitely find some legs.
Yes. All right. Well, Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room Podcast. Thank you once again, sir. Anything in particular you'd like to shill? I'm going to give you the thing that you give me every show.
Not too much outside the Sawdust City Fright Fest coming up in less than a week and a half. Things are ramping up for that, so we've got that going on. I've got a few reviews on the channel and whatnot, but mostly that's the big thing right now coming up. Otherwise, specialmarkproductions.com for all your Movie Man needs. Everything I work on is there. So
Awesome. Well, the Sawdust City Fright Fest, that's going to be exciting. And I'll have a link down below for all the information. Folks can look that up if you're in the Oshkosh area, coming up in a couple weekends, or in a
yes,
weekend when this comes out. Yeah, I know.
second weekend in October. Yeah, it
Yeah.
came up quick. So
All right. Well, thanks again, Mark, and thank you out there for watching. If you saw Good Boy, if you liked it or hated it, whatever, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. And if you like the show, please like, subscribe, and all that business. Be sure and support Mark and all of his many endeavors. His information is down below. Be sure and like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care. Hey everyone, Ian here. I know, long time no see, but if you like the video you just watched, feel free to subscribe to Kicking the Seat right here, and also check out the playlist and recommended video right here. Thanks for watching.